I used to think family meant safety, that blood ties guaranteed loyalty and honesty, that Sunday dinners at my mother's house were sacred spaces where we could all be our authentic selves. How naive I was. It started with small things. The way my sister Emma's eyes would dart away when I entered the kitchen. How my brother Mike would suddenly change the subject mid-sentence. The strange, almost pitying looks from my father. I brushed it off as stress. Everyone was busy with their own lives, their own problems. My mother had insisted on this particular Sunday dinner for weeks. "Everyone needs to be there," she'd said, her voice carrying that authoritative tone that hadn't changed since we were children. "It's important, Olivia. No excuses." I arrived early, as I always did. The habit of being the responsible one dies hard. My mother was in the kitchen, her hands working methodically as she prepared her famous pot roast. The house smelled like rosemary and childhood memories. "Need help?" I asked, already reaching for an apron. My mother barely glanced up. "No, I've got it under control. Why don't you set the table? Use the good china." The good china. Something was definitely up. We only used those dishes on Thanksgiving or Christmas, never for regular Sunday dinners. A knot formed in my stomach, but I nodded and got to work. One by one, they arrived. Emma with her husband Tom and their 2 kids. Mike with his new girlfriend, the 3rd one this year. Dad, looking uncomfortable in a button-up shirt that wasn't his usual style. Everyone carried something. Wine, dessert, side dishes, everything perfectly coordinated, as if they'd planned it together. Had they? I couldn't remember being part of any group text about bringing food. "Olivia!" Emma embraced me, her smile too bright, her hug too quick. "How are you holding up?" "Fine," I said, confused by her choice of words. "Why wouldn't I be?" Her eyes widened slightly. "Oh, work and everything. You mentioned that big project last time." I hadn't mentioned any big project. I'd been between assignments for weeks, something Emma definitely knew. The conversation moved on before I could question her further. Everyone settled around the dining room, voices overlapping as they discussed neighborhood gossip and the kids' activities. Normal family dinner talk, except for the glances. Those quick, meaningful looks exchanged when they thought I wasn't watching. My mother emerged from the kitchen, carrying the pot roast like it was a sacrificial offering. "Everyone sit down," she announced. "Mike, would you pour the wine?" "Already on it, Mom," he replied, filling everyone's glasses with practiced ease. When he reached mine, he hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Red okay for you, Liv? Or would you prefer something else?" "Red is fine," I said slowly. Mike knew I always drank red wine, had done so for the past decade. We sat down, the scraping of chairs against hardwood filling the momentary silence. My father cleared his throat, looking at my mother. She nodded almost imperceptibly. "So," he began, uncharacteristically formal, "before we eat, I'd like to say how wonderful it is to have everyone here today. Family is everything." Murmurs of agreement circled the table. I smiled and nodded, trying to ignore the increasing weight in my stomach. Something was off, very off. The meal progressed with strained normalcy. Conversations happened around me rather than with me. Every time I spoke, there was that brief pause, that careful recalibration in everyone's expression. "The roast is delicious, Mom," I offered during one lull. "Thanks, honey," she replied, her eyes not quite meeting mine. "I made it exactly how you like it, exactly how I liked it, as if this meal was somehow for me specifically." The weight in my stomach turned cold. It was during dessert when I couldn't take it anymore. Emma's daughter had spilled her juice, creating a momentary distraction as napkins were passed and reassurances given. In that chaos, I saw it. My brother leaning toward my father, whispering, "So, when are we going to tell her? Tell me what?" The room seemed to shrink around me. The clinking of silverware against plates became deafening. The familial chatter transformed into a sinister hum. I set down my fork with deliberate care. "Would someone please tell me what's going on?" The conversation halted abruptly. 6 pairs of eyes turned to me, expressions ranging from surprise to guilt. "What do you mean, sweetie?" My mother's voice was too high, too careful. I mean, I said, measuring each word, that everyone at this table is acting strange. You're all exchanging looks, whispering, treating me like I'm made of glass. So I'll ask again. What is going on? The silence that followed was answer enough. They knew something, all of them. Something about me. My father was the first to break. Olivia, we were trying to find the right moment. Dad. Mike's voice carried a warning. She deserves to know, my father insisted, suddenly looking older than his 65 years. Know what? I demanded, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my fingertips. My mother reached across the table, attempting to take my hand. I pulled away. Honey, she began, her eyes filling with tears. We found out something. About James. James, my husband, currently on a business trip to Seattle, the same business trip that had been extended twice already. What about James? My voice sounded distant, like it belonged to someone else. Emma exchanged a look with her husband. Mike studied his wine glass with sudden intensity. My mother looked to my father for support. My father started. He's been seeing someone else, my mother finished, the words tumbling out. For months now, maybe longer. The room tilted sideways for a moment. I gripped the edge of the table, feeling the smooth wood under my fingertips. This couldn't be right. James and I had been married for 8 years. We were trying for a baby. We had plans. How do you know this? I asked, surprised by how calm I sounded. Mike pulled out his phone, hesitated, then slid it across the table. Carly saw them together at Le Bistro last week. She took this... I'm sorry, Liv. The photo was slightly blurry, but unmistakable. James, my husband, his hand intertwined with a woman's across a candlelit table, his wedding ring conspicuously absent. Le Bistro is in Chicago, I said mechanically. James is in Seattle. The pity in their eyes was unbearable. How long have you all known? I asked, looking around the table. At my family, the people I trusted most in the world. I found out last week, Emma admitted. I told Mom and Dad right away. I've suspected something for a while, Mike added quietly. Some of the guys at the gym mentioned seeing him around town when he was supposed to be traveling. My mother couldn't meet my eyes. We wanted to be sure before we said anything. We were trying to protect you. Protect me. The words tasted bitter. By having secret conversations? By excluding me from the truth about my own marriage? By gathering here to what? Stage an intervention? No one denied it. This dinner, the good china, the careful coordination, it had all been planned. A family meeting about poor, oblivious Olivia and her cheating husband. How long were you all going to wait to tell me? I asked. Were you hoping he'd just confess on his own? Or were you all just comfortable watching me live a lie? That's not fair, Emma protested. We were trying to figure out the best way. The best way would have been immediately. My voice rose despite my efforts to contain it. The moment any of you suspected something, the right thing, the only thing, would have been to tell me. We didn't want to hurt you, my mother said, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. I laughed, a harsh sound that startled even me. And this doesn't hurt? Finding out my entire family has been keeping secrets? That you've all been talking about me behind my back? Pitying me? We love you, Olivia, my father said, his voice breaking. We were trying to protect you. Love doesn't look like this, I replied, standing up. The chair scraped loudly against the floor. Love is honest. Love is respectful. This, whatever this is, isn't love. It's control. I grabbed my purse from the sideboard, my movements precise despite the hurricane of emotions inside me. 8 years of marriage potentially wasted. A family I could no longer trust. Everything I thought I knew about my life was crumbling, and they had all watched it happen, whispering among themselves. Olivia, please don't leave like this, my mother pleaded. We can talk about what to do next, as a family. I paused at the dining room doorway, looking back at the tableau they created. My perfect family around my mother's perfect table. their faces a mixture of guilt and concern. The good china gleaming under the chandelier light, the half-eaten dessert abandoned as the real meal of the evening. My humiliation was served instead. "You all made a choice," I said quietly. "You chose to exclude me from the truth about my own life. Now I'm making a choice too." I walked out of my childhood home, closing the door firmly behind me. In my car, I sat for long minutes, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed with incoming texts, probably all of them, frantically trying to explain, to justify. I turned it off. The Sunday evening air was cool as I drove away, no destination in mind, just away from the lies, the secrets, the family dinner where I finally realized I was the only one who didn't know what was happening in my own life. James would be home tomorrow. He'd walk through our front door with Seattle souvenirs and business trip stories, expecting me to welcome him with open arms. But I wouldn't be there, because now I knew something too. The hotel room was depressingly generic. Beige walls, floral prints that matched nothing, a television I hadn't turned on. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my silent phone. 43 notifications, voice messages from my mother, my sister, even my father who hated talking on the phone. Nothing from James. Of course not. He was still pretending to be in Seattle, unaware that his carefully constructed lie had collapsed around him. Unaware that I knew. What else didn't I know? That thought kept circling as I finally peeled off my clothes and stood under the shower's scalding spray. Had there been other signs I'd missed? Other moments when my family exchanged those knowing glances? How many Sunday dinners had I sat through, oblivious to the undercurrents of secrets swirling around me? Sleep came in fitful bursts. I kept jolting awake, momentarily confused by the unfamiliar surroundings before the memories crashed back. Each time, the betrayal felt fresh. Not just James. I had prepared myself for the possibility of his infidelity after seeing that photo, but my family. The people who were supposed to have my back had instead formed a wall of silence around me. By morning, I had made a decision. I wouldn't confront James immediately. I needed more information, and I needed time to process both betrayals without anyone trying to manage my reactions. I called in sick to work, something I rarely did. My boss sounded genuinely concerned. "Take all the time you need, Olivia. The Thompson project can wait." At least someone was being straightforward with me. I turned my phone back on but didn't read any of the messages. Instead, I called the one person who hadn't been at that disastrous Sunday dinner, my best friend, Rachel. "Liv," she answered on the second ring. "Are you okay? Your mom called me last night." Of course she had. My mother never could respect boundaries. "I need your help," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "And I need you not to tell my family we spoke." A pause. "What's going on? Your mom said you ran out of family dinner and no one's been able to reach you." "Did she tell you why?" Another pause. "No, just that they're worried." At least they hadn't spread my business to everyone yet. Small mercies. "James is cheating on me," I said bluntly. "My entire family knew before I did. They've been keeping it from me, Rachel, for weeks, maybe months." "Oh my God, Liv." Her shock sounded genuine. "Are you sure?" "About which part? James cheating or my family's betrayal? Because yes to both." I explained everything. The strange dinner, the awkward behavior, the revelation, and the awful realization that I was the last to know about my own marriage. "Where are you now?" she asked when I finished. "The Midtown Inn, room 217. I hesitated. "I need you to do something for me, Rachel. James thinks I don't know yet. He's coming home today from his fake business trip." What do you need?" "I need to know what else he's been lying about. Can you go to our house? There's a spare key." "Under the turtle statue. I remember. Rachel had house sat for us last summer." "I need you to look through his office, the filing cabinet in the corner, bottom drawer. That's where he keeps all our financial documents." It felt wrong asking my friend to spy on my husband, but what choice did I have? Everyone I trusted had betrayed that trust. I needed facts, not more half-truths and pitying looks. "I'll go right now. Rachel promised. He's not supposed to be back until tonight, right? His flight lands at 5:30. You should have plenty of time. After hanging up, I forced myself to eat something from the vending machine, a stale granola bar that tasted like cardboard. Then I finally opened the messages. Mom, 8:43 p.m. Olivia, please call me. We need to talk. Mom, 9:15 p.m. I'm worried about you. Just let me know you're safe. Mom, 10:02 p.m. Your father and I love you. We only wanted to protect you. Emma, 8:47 p.m. Liv, I'm so sorry. We should have told you sooner. Please don't shut us out. Emma, 9:30 p.m. Mom is beside herself. Where are you staying tonight? Mike, 9:22 p.m. Hey sis, I know you're pissed and you have every right, but don't do anything rash, okay? Call me if you need anything. Dad, 10:15 p.m. Your mother is very upset. Please call her. The messages continued through the night and into the morning. Not once did any of them acknowledge the fundamental violation of trust. It was all about their feelings, their worry, their good intentions. I deleted them all without responding. Around noon, Rachel called back. I found something, she said, her voice tight. Several things, actually. Tell me. First, there are credit card statements with charges from jewelry stores, high-end restaurants, hotel rooms, places I know you haven't been. My stomach twisted. What else? There's a lease agreement, Liv, for an apartment on Westview Avenue. It's in his name only. Started 3 months ago. 3 months. While we were actively trying to conceive a child, James had rented a separate apartment. The betrayal was so much deeper than I had imagined. The worst part, Rachel continued, is I found papers from your joint investment account. He's been withdrawing money, large amounts, over the past 6 months. How much? My voice sounded hollow. Nearly $50,000. The room spun briefly. That was most of our savings, money we'd been putting aside for our future, for the family we planned to have. There's one more thing. Rachel sounded hesitant now. I found prescription bottles in his desk drawer. They're not in his name. Whose name are they in? Someone named Vanessa Mitchell. Female hormone supplements, prenatal vitamins. The implication hit me like a physical blow. Not only was James cheating, but the woman, Vanessa, might be pregnant. While I had been tracking my ovulation and taking my temperature every morning, desperately hoping for a positive pregnancy test, James had potentially gotten someone else pregnant. Liv, are you still there? I realized I had been silent for too long. Yes, I'm here. What do you want me to do? Should I put everything back, or... Take photos, I decided, of all of it. Then put everything exactly as you found it. After hanging up, I sat motionless, trying to process this new information. It wasn't just an affair. It was a whole secret life, funded with our joint savings, conducted in an apartment he'd rented without my knowledge. And possibly, the thought made me physically ill, a child on the way. Had my family known all of this too? Had they been discussing not just his infidelity, but the extent of his deception? Had Sunday dinners been filled with whispered updates about James's other life while I smiled and passed the potatoes, blissfully unaware? My phone rang again. James. I stared at his name on the screen, at the photo of us from last Christmas that appeared with his call. We were both smiling, his arm around my waist, my head tilted toward his shoulder. We looked happy. We looked real. It had all been a lie. I let the call go to voicemail, then listened to his message. Hey babe, just landed in Chicago. Flight got in early. I should be home by 7. Can't wait to see you. Love you. Chicago. Not Seattle. He couldn't even keep his lies straight anymore. Rachel texted photos of everything she'd found. The credit card statements with highlighted charges at places I'd never been. The lease agreement with James's familiar signature. The investment account withdrawals, each one a separate betrayal. And finally, the prescription bottles with Vanessa Mitchell's name clearly visible. I saved every photo, then wrote a brief email to myself with all the details, including dates and amounts. Evidence. I wasn't sure what I was going to do with it yet, but I needed to document everything before confronting James. Around 4 p.m., Rachel called again, her voice urgent. "Liv, you need to get back here now. James just pulled into the driveway. I'm hiding in the guest bathroom." "What? He's not supposed to be home for hours." "Well, he's here, and he's not alone." My heart seemed to stop. "Who's with him?" "A woman. Blonde, maybe early 30s. She's very pregnant." The room tilted again. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. "Get out of there," I said. "Go out the back door. Text me when you're clear." I threw my few belongings into my overnight bag and checked out of the hotel. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, forcing myself to breathe. James had brought his pregnant mistress to our home. Our home. My phone buzzed with Rachel's text. "I'm out. They didn't see me. What now?" What now, indeed. I could drive home, confront them both, create a scene. I could call my family, tell them they were right all along, submit to their plans for how I should handle this catastrophe. Or I could take control of this narrative myself. I started the car and headed not toward home, but to the bank where James and I had our accounts. I arrived 20 minutes before closing. "Mrs. Reynolds," the manager greeted me with a smile. "What can I help you with today?" "I need to make some changes to my accounts," I said, my voice remarkably calm. "I'd like to remove my husband's access to my personal checking account and open a new individual savings account." His expression remained professionally neutral, but I saw the flicker of concern in his eyes. "Of course. May I ask if everything is all right?" "No," I replied honestly. "Everything is not all right, but it will be." By the time I left the bank, I had secured what remained of my own money and opened a new account that James couldn't access. It wasn't much. Most of our money had been in that joint investment account he'd been systematically draining. But it was something. It was mine. Next, I drove to our attorney's office. Barbara Collins had helped us with our wills and house purchase 3 years ago. I didn't have an appointment, but her assistant took one look at my face and found a way to squeeze me in. "Olivia," Barbara said, ushering me into her office. "This is unexpected." "I need advice," I said, sitting down across from her desk, "about divorce and financial protection." To her credit, Barbara didn't show surprise. She simply nodded and pulled out a legal pad. "Tell me what's happening." I explained the situation as clinically as I could, showing her the photos Rachel had taken. Barbara listened without interruption, occasionally making notes. "He's emptied most of your joint savings," she summarized when I finished. "He's established a separate residence. He's clearly been supporting another woman who appears to be pregnant with his child. And your family was aware of at least the affair portion of this situation before you were." "Yes," I confirmed. "That's accurate." She set down her pen and looked at me directly. "Olivia, I won't sugarcoat this. You're in a difficult position, but you've taken smart first steps today by securing your personal finances. Here's what we need to do next." For the next 40 minutes, Barbara outlined a strategy: filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct, securing temporary orders to prevent James from removing any more assets, documenting everything to strengthen my position in the eventual settlement. "What about tonight?" I asked when we'd covered the legal groundwork. "He's at our house with her. I don't want to go back there." Barbara's expression softened slightly. "Do you have somewhere safe to stay?" I thought about my options. My family was out of the question. Rachel would offer her couch in a heartbeat, but her studio apartment was barely big enough for one person. A hotel would quickly deplete what little money I had left. "Not really," I admitted. Barbara reached into her desk drawer and pulled out a key. "I have a lake house about an hour from here. It's nothing fancy, but it's private and comfortable. You're welcome to use it until you figure out your next steps." I stared at the key, emotion finally breaking through the numb efficiency that had carried me through the afternoon. "I couldn't—" "You can," she insisted, pressing the key into my hand. "I've seen too many women caught in similar situations with nowhere to go. The address is on the tag. There's a security code for the door, 1234. Not very creative, I know." I thanked her, my voice thick with unshed tears. As I stood to leave, she added, "One more thing, Olivia. You should know that your actions today, coming straight to secure your finances and legal position instead of confronting your husband in an emotional state, show tremendous strength and clarity. Hold on to that in the coming weeks. You're going to need it. In my car, I finally allowed myself a moment to break down. Tears came in a flood, sobs racking my body as I gripped the steering wheel. I cried for the marriage I thought I had, for the family I'd planned to start, for the trust I'd placed in the people who were supposed to love me most. I cried until my throat was raw and my eyes burned. Then I wiped my face, started the car, and drove toward Barbara's lake house, and whatever future awaited me beyond this day of revelations. My phone buzzed continuously with texts and calls from my family and now from James, who had apparently returned to find me missing. James, 6:45 p.m. Where are you? I'm home. James, 7:10 p.m. Babe, call me please. Getting worried. James, 7:32 p.m. Olivia, this isn't like you. What's going on? If he only knew. As the city lights faded behind me and the road stretched into darkness, one thought kept circling in my mind. At Sunday dinner, I realized everyone in the family knew something, except me. They thought they could quietly leave me out, but they forgot that I would eventually find out the truth. And now that I had, nothing would ever be the same again. Barbara's lake house was exactly what I needed. Isolated, quiet, with a view of water that seemed to absorb my grief like a silent confidant. I spent that first night sitting on the dock, watching moonlight ripple across the lake's surface, trying to make sense of how quickly my life had unraveled. By morning, I had 37 missed calls, 18 from James, 12 from my mother, 5 from Emma, and 2 from Mike. The voicemails ranged from James's initial confusion to his eventual anger, from my mother's tearful pleas to my sister's increasingly frantic messages. I listened to each one, letting their words wash over me without penetrating the protective numbness I'd wrapped around myself. There was a strange clarity in this isolation, a chance to see the patterns I'd missed before. How many times had James been working late when he was really with Vanessa? How many business trips had actually been weekends in their secret apartment? How many times had my family exchanged those knowing glances when I mentioned our plans to start a family, plans that now seemed like a cruel joke? Around noon, a text came from Rachel. James is freaking out. He came by my place looking for you. I played dumb, but he didn't believe me. Be careful, Liv. I replied with a simple thank you and the address of Barbara's lake house, just so someone knew where I was. I trusted Rachel. She'd proven that yesterday. Another text buzzed through, this one from James. Olivia, this has gone far enough. Your mother told me what happened at dinner. We need to talk about this like adults. Call me. So, he'd been in contact with my family. Of course he had. They were probably all strategizing together about how to handle poor, fragile Olivia. The thought made me physically ill. I typed back, there's nothing to talk about. I know about Vanessa. I know about the apartment. I know about the money. I've contacted a lawyer. His response was immediate. It's not what you think. Let me explain. Not what I thought. I'd seen the evidence with my own eyes. His pregnant mistress in our home, the drained accounts, the secret apartment. What possible explanation could make that acceptable? I didn't respond. Instead, I called Barbara. She answered immediately. I heard from James, I told her. He knows I know. Have you told him where you are? No, just that I've spoken to a lawyer. Good, she said. I've prepared the initial paperwork. We can file first thing tomorrow morning if you're ready. Was I ready? To officially end my 8-year marriage? To admit to the world that the life I thought I had was built on lies? Yes, I said, surprising myself with how firm my voice sounded. I'm ready. I'll pick you up at 8 a.m., Barbara promised. Try to get some rest tonight, Olivia. Tomorrow will be challenging. Rest seemed impossible, but I tried. I forced myself to eat something, to shower, to go through the motions of normal human behavior. I found an old paperback on a shelf and tried to lose myself in someone else's story, someone else's problems. Around 7 p.m., headlights swept across the windows. My heart lurched into my throat. Had James somehow found me? I peered cautiously through the curtains. Not James's sleek BMW, but my mother's practical Volvo. How had she found me? Rachel. It had to be. But I'd trusted her. A sharp knock at the door. "Olivia, I know you're in there. Please open the door." My mother's voice, that familiar mixture of authority and concern that had shaped my childhood. I stood frozen, torn between ignoring her and confronting her. "I came alone," she called out, as if reading my thoughts. "No one else knows I'm here." Against my better judgment, I opened the door. My mother stood on the porch, looking smaller somehow, her usually perfect appearance showing signs of strain. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her hair pulled back hastily. "How did you find me?" I asked, not inviting her in. "Rachel didn't tell me," she said immediately. "I called her, yes, but she wouldn't say anything. I hired someone to follow you yesterday. A private investigator." "You what?" The violation was so unexpected that I could only stare at her. "I was worried sick, Olivia. You disappeared. What was I supposed to do? Respect my privacy? Understand that I needed space? Not treat me like a child who needs to be tracked down?" She flinched at my tone but didn't back down. "May I come in, please?" I stepped aside, not out of welcoming but exhaustion. What was one more confrontation in this endless nightmare? She entered cautiously, looking around at the modest lake house interior. "This is nice. Whose place is it?" "My lawyer's," I said, taking some satisfaction in how her face paled. "You've already contacted a lawyer?" "Olivia, don't you think you're moving too fast? You and James need to talk this through." I laughed, a harsh sound that seemed to bounce off the wooden walls. "Talk it through?" "Mom, he has another woman. She's pregnant. He's stolen our savings and rented a secret apartment. What exactly is there to talk through?" My mother sat down heavily on the sofa. "I didn't know all that," she whispered. "About the money, the apartment, the pregnancy. We just knew he was seeing someone. And yet none of you thought I deserved to know even that much," I replied, remaining standing, needing the physical advantage of height. "We were trying to protect you," she insisted, the same excuse she'd given at dinner. "We thought maybe it was just a phase, that he'd come to his senses." A phase. I tested the word, feeling its inadequacy. "Mom, I'm filing for divorce tomorrow morning. That's not up for discussion." She looked up sharply. "Tomorrow? But that's so soon." "When would be a good time, Mom? After he's emptied our accounts completely? After his baby is born? What's the appropriate waiting period for responding to complete betrayal?" Her eyes filled with tears. "I just don't want you to make a decision in anger that you might regret. Marriage is complicated, Olivia. People make mistakes." "This wasn't a mistake," I said quietly. "A mistake is forgetting an anniversary or saying something hurtful in an argument. This was a deliberate series of choices he made, day after day, for months, and all of you chose to keep it from me." "We were wrong," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I see that now. We should have told you immediately." "I'm so sorry, Olivia." Her apology, though seemingly sincere, came too late. The damage was done. Trust, once broken, isn't easily repaired. Something my mother, with her 40-year marriage to my faithful father, might never truly understand. "I appreciate that," I said, not quite accepting her apology, but acknowledging it. "But I need space right now, from all of you." "James came to the house today," she said, changing tactics. "He's devastated, Olivia. He says it's all a big misunderstanding." "Did he bring Vanessa with him? Did he explain her pregnant belly as a misunderstanding too?" My mother looked away. "No, he was alone. He said he made a terrible mistake, that he wants to make things right." "Did he tell you about the $50,000 he took from our savings? About the apartment he's been renting for 3 months? Did he explain any of that?" "No," she admitted. "He just said he loves you and wants another chance." "Well, I don't love him anymore," I said, the truth of it hitting me as the words left my mouth. "And there won't be another chance." My mother stood, approaching me slowly as if I might bolt. "Honey, I know you're hurting, and you have every right to be angry. At James, at us. But please don't make permanent decisions in a temporary emotional state." "My emotional state isn't the problem, Mom. James's actions are, and frankly, so are yours." All of you decided to keep the truth from me, to manage my life like I'm not an adult capable of handling difficult situations. We never meant— I know what you meant. I cut her off. Your intentions don't change the outcome. I found out anyway, in the worst possible way, feeling like a fool in front of my entire family. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I think you should go now. Olivia, please, let me help you through this. Let us help you. I don't want your help, I said firmly. I don't trust your help. Not anymore. Her face crumpled, but I held firm. This boundary was necessary, perhaps the first of many I would need to establish as I rebuilt my life. I'll go, she said finally. But please know that we love you. All of us. We made a terrible mistake, but we love you. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. As she reached the door, she turned back. Will you at least let me know what happens tomorrow, after you see the lawyer? I'll think about it, I said, not committing. After she left, I sank onto the sofa, emotionally drained. My phone buzzed again, James, with a series of increasingly desperate texts. James, 8:17 p.m. Your mother told me she saw you. Please, Olivia, just give me a chance to explain. James, 8:18 p.m. I know I messed up, but it's not what you think. James, 8:20 p.m. I love you, only you. Please come home so we can talk. I turned off my phone. Morning came with a sense of finality. I dressed carefully in clothes I'd hastily packed. Black pants, a blue blouse that James had always said brought out my eyes. A small, defiant choice. Barbara arrived exactly at 8 a.m. as promised. In her car, she briefed me on what to expect at the courthouse. We're filing for divorce on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct, she explained. We're also requesting emergency orders to freeze any remaining joint assets and to grant you exclusive use of the marital home. I don't want the house, I said immediately. The thought of returning to that space, where James had brought his pregnant mistress, made my skin crawl. Barbara nodded. We can sell it as part of the settlement, but for now, it's strategic to request it. We want to establish that you were forced to leave due to his misconduct. The courthouse was intimidating, all marble and echoing halls. I felt small walking through it, like the weight of my failed marriage was physically pressing down on me. But with each step, each signature on the thick stack of papers Barbara had prepared, I felt something else growing alongside the grief. Resolve. This was my life, my choice. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I was taking control of my own narrative. As we left the courthouse, papers filed, Barbara squeezed my shoulder. First step done. It gets easier from here. I wasn't sure I believed her, but I nodded anyway. Do you want me to drive you back to the lake house? She asked. I hesitated. Actually, there's somewhere else I need to go first. 30 minutes later, Barbara dropped me off at Westview Avenue, the address on the lease agreement Rachel had found. The apartment building was modern, expensive looking, the kind of place a successful businessman might keep for his pregnant mistress. Are you sure about this? Barbara asked, concern evident in her voice. You don't have to confront them today. I'm not confronting anyone, I assured her. I just need to see it, to make it real. She didn't look convinced, but handed me her card. Call me when you're done. I'll come pick you up. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner before approaching the building. The security system was high-end, requiring a key fob for entry. I stood outside, studying the directory, searching for James's name or perhaps Vanessa's. Nothing. They must have listed it under another name. As I turned to leave, a young woman exited, holding the door open politely for me. I thanked her and slipped inside, heart pounding. This wasn't breaking and entering, not exactly. The apartment was partially paid for with my money, after all. The lease had listed Unit 412. I took the elevator, rehearsing what I might say if someone was there. But what were the chances? James would be at work, pretending everything was normal, and Vanessa, well, I had no idea what she did during the day. The hallway was quiet, tastefully decorated. Apartment 412 was at the end, corner unit. Probably had a nice view. I stood before the door, suddenly uncertain. What was I hoping to accomplish here? What did I expect to find? Closure, perhaps, or confirmation. Something to solidify the reality of my situation. I raised my hand to knock, then froze at the sound of a voice from inside. A woman's voice followed by a man's response. James. They were both there. I pressed my ear against the door. Ethics be damned. Still can't find her, James was saying, his voice muffled but recognizable. She's filed for divorce already. How did this happen so quickly? I told you we should have been honest from the start, the woman, presumably Vanessa, replied. This sneaking around was your idea, not mine. I was trying to find the right time, James defended. It's complicated. Well, it's about to get more complicated. My doctor said the baby could come any day now. My hand flew to my mouth, stifling a gasp. Any day now. While I had been tracking ovulation and hoping for pregnancy, this woman was in her final days of carrying my husband's child. I know. James sounded stressed. Look, once Olivia calms down, I'll explain everything. She'll understand eventually. Understand what? That he'd been living a double life? That he'd betrayed every vow we'd made? You keep saying that. Vanessa sounded skeptical. But from where I'm standing, it looks like she understands perfectly. She's filed for divorce, James. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over, he snapped, a harshness in his voice I'd rarely heard. I've invested too much in this marriage to let it end like this. Invested. Like our relationship was a business transaction. Maybe to him it had been. What about us? Vanessa asked, her voice smaller now. What about the baby? There was a pause, then James's voice, gentler. You know I'll take care of you both. I promised, didn't I? But I need to handle this my way. I'd heard enough, more than enough. I backed away from the door, heart hammering in my chest. In my haste, I bumped against a decorative table in the hallway, sending a vase crashing to the floor. The conversation inside stopped abruptly. What was that? James's voice, now sharp with alarm. I didn't wait to find out if they'd investigate. I ran for the stairs, unwilling to risk waiting for the elevator. 3 flights down, I burst into the lobby and out onto the street, not stopping until I was a block away, lungs burning. I leaned against a storefront trying to catch my breath. My phone was in my hand, though I didn't remember pulling it out. I called Barbara. I need you to pick me up, I managed between breaths. Not at the apartment, corner of Westview and 9th. Are you okay? Her voice was immediately concerned. What happened? They were there, I said, the reality of what I'd heard still sinking in. Both of them. She's about to have the baby. I'm on my way, Barbara said. Stay where you are. I ended the call and sank onto a nearby bench, the adrenaline leaving my system as quickly as it had surged. The conversation I'd overheard played on repeat in my mind. James's determination to handle me. His promise to Vanessa. The imminent arrival of their child. It was real. All of it. Not that I had doubted the evidence, but hearing it directly, in their own voices, removed any last shred of denial I might have been clinging to. By the time Barbara's car pulled up, I had composed myself. I slid into the passenger seat, grateful for her presence. What happened? She asked, studying my face with concern. I told her everything I'd heard, watching her expression shift from concern to professional calculation. This is actually helpful, she said when I finished. It confirms the relationship, the pregnancy, and establishes his intent to continue providing financial support to both households, which means he's been planning this deception long term. He said he's invested too much to let our marriage end, I added, still stung by his choice of words. Barbara nodded grimly. That's likely about the money. If you divorce him, especially on grounds of adultery and financial misconduct, he stands to lose a significant portion of the marital assets. What assets? I laughed bitterly. He's drained our savings. But there's the house, retirement accounts, possibly other investments we don't know about yet. And now we know he's planning to support Vanessa and their child, which means he has financial resources we haven't identified. She pulled away from the curb, heading back toward the lake house. This is why I suggested we request a forensic accountant as part of the emergency orders. We need to find out exactly what he's been hiding. The rest of the day passed in a blur of phone calls and strategy sessions. Barbara coordinated with her staff, expediting the emergency orders we'd filed that morning. I provided what financial information I could remember: account numbers, passwords, the names of investment firms we'd used. By evening, we had the first piece of good news. The judge had granted our request to freeze the joint accounts. James wouldn't be able to withdraw any more money. He'll be served with the divorce papers tomorrow morning, Barbara told me. At his office, as you requested, are you prepared for his reaction? I considered this. He'll be angry, then he'll try to charm me. When that doesn't work, he'll threaten, probably with financial consequences. Barbara looked impressed. You know him well. I thought I did, I corrected her. Now I'm seeing the parts of him I was blind to before. My phone had been buzzing intermittently throughout the day. James, my family, even a few friends who must have heard something was wrong. I'd ignored them all. But as night fell at the lake house, I found myself staring at the dark screen, thinking about the people I'd shut out. Not James. I had nothing to say to him until we were in a room with lawyers present. But my family, they had betrayed my trust. Yes, made a terrible judgment call in keeping James's affair from me. But had it been malicious or just deeply misguided? I turned my phone back on, watching as notifications flooded the screen. Among them was a text from my father, his first direct communication since the disastrous Sunday dinner. Your mother told me she saw you. I want you to know that I disagreed with keeping James's affair from you. I was overruled. I'm sorry I didn't stand up for you more strongly. Whatever you decide about your marriage, I support you. Love, Dad. His words loosened something in my chest. Not forgiveness exactly, but perhaps the beginning of understanding. I texted back, I'm safe. I've filed for divorce. I need time. His response came immediately. Take all the time you need. We'll be here when you're ready. I set the phone down and walked out to the dock, watching as the last light faded from the sky and stars began to appear, reflected in the still water below. The future stretched before me, uncertain but mine to shape. At Sunday dinner, I had realized everyone knew something except me. They had tried to leave me out, to protect me from a truth they thought would break me, but they had been wrong about that. The truth hadn't broken me. It had set me free. The morning after filing for divorce, my phone rang at dawn. Barbara's name flashed on the screen. He's been served, she said without preamble. No scene at the office, but he looked shocked. I nodded to myself. James had always been concerned with appearances. What happens next? We wait for his response. The emergency orders are in effect, accounts frozen, assets protected. If he violates those, he'll be in contempt. After hanging up, I took my coffee to the dock, watching mist rise from the lake. 8 years of marriage reduced to court filings and legal terminology. There was something strangely peaceful about finally facing the truth. My phone buzzed repeatedly with texts from James. You had me served at work? In front of everyone? How could you humiliate me like that? This is extreme, Olivia. We can work this out without lawyers. The accounts are frozen. I can't access our money. What am I supposed to do? That last one almost made me laugh. What was he supposed to do? Perhaps use some of the $50,000 he'd already taken. I blocked his number without responding. Later that morning, I ventured into town for supplies. In the grocery store, I ran into Sarah from my neighborhood book club. Olivia, we've all been so worried, she gushed. Some people are saying you had a breakdown after... Well, you know. I didn't have a breakdown, Sarah, I replied firmly. I made a decision to remove myself from a toxic situation. I'm getting a divorce, not having a nervous breakdown. Her eyes widened. Divorce? But James seems so devastated. He came to book club last week with those pastries you always make, asking if anyone had heard from you. The image of James playing the abandoned husband while his pregnant mistress waited at their apartment made my blood boil. But instead of anger, I felt something unexpected. Pity. Sarah, I appreciate your concern, but you don't know the full situation. I'd appreciate it if everyone could respect my privacy right now. I paid for my groceries and left quickly, feeling the weight of neighborhood gossip pressing down on me. Back at the lake house, I found a text from my father. Whatever you need, whenever you're ready. Love you. That evening, as sunset painted the lake in shades of orange and gold, I sat on the dock with a glass of wine. 3 days ago, my biggest concern had been whether James and I would conceive this month. Now I was filing for divorce, living in a borrowed lake house, and discovering that the people I'd trusted most had all betrayed me in different ways. Yet somehow, I felt stronger than I had in years. The weight of deception had been lifted. No more wondering why James was distant, why my family exchanged those glances, why something always felt slightly off in my perfect life. My phone rang, an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Olivia? A woman's voice, unfamiliar, yet somehow expected. Yes? Who is this? It's Vanessa. A pause. James doesn't know I'm calling. My heart hammered in my chest. How did you get my number? From his phone while he was in the shower. She sounded nervous. I know this is strange, but I need to tell you something. I think I know enough already, I said coldly. No, you don't, she insisted. James told me you two were separated, that you were filing for divorce before we even met. He said you were only staying together for financial reasons. The familiar pattern of James's deception, lies stacked upon lies. When did you find out the truth? Last month. Her voice cracked. I saw a photo of you two on his phone. You looked happy. I confronted him, and he admitted everything. And yet you stayed. I'm 8 months pregnant with his child, she said simply. What choice did I have? What choice did any of us have once James's lies had entangled our lives? I'm not calling to apologize, Vanessa continued. Though I am sorry, I'm calling to warn you. James is angry about the divorce, about the frozen accounts. He mentioned getting revenge. Thank you for telling me, I said, surprised by my own composure. After we hung up, I watched the last light fade from the sky, stars emerging one by one, reflected perfectly in the still water below. At Sunday dinner, I had realized everyone knew something except me. They had tried to keep me in the dark, thinking they were protecting me from a truth too painful to bear. But they had been wrong about me. The truth hadn't destroyed me. It had revealed my strength. In the darkness of betrayal, I had found something unexpected. Myself. Not James's wife, not my parents' daughter, not the neighborhood's perfect homemaker. Just Olivia. Wounded, but unbroken. Finally seeing clearly. Tomorrow would bring more challenges. Legal battles, painful conversations, a new life to build from scratch. But for the first time in years, I would face it all as myself, eyes wide open. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was mine to walk. And that made all the difference.